Hello, hello, hello. My name is Rowena, and today we are going to be talking about VTubing. More specifically, I am going to be critiquing and breaking down a thread that somebody named Lycqnn made, and I would like to thank her so much for letting me use this thread to talk about this specific issue I see in the VTuber community a lot. So yeah, with that being said, let's get into it. Alrighty, so I have the tweet pulled up here, just to the side of me so that everybody can see it while I'm going through it. Basically, the way this breakdown is going to work is that this thread is about 3 tweets long. So I'm just going to go tweet by tweet, and basically the first phrase is going to be me just kind of summarizing every point, and talking about the general stuff that's said in it, and then it's going to go into me kind of breaking down each point and giving my own perspective on it. And yeah, so stay tuned. I will be offering a lot of advice just through this video for how to start VTubing for relatively cheap, because one of the big things that's talked about this is costs. So with that being said, let's get started. So getting into this thread, it basically reads that there's a lot of drama, and sometimes it feels like being back in high school all over again, except, you know, with worse or more serious issues than you would typically encounter in a high school setting. That VTubers use others to benefit them, that there's a lot of gatekeeping, people get canceled for tiny things, not being able to freely speak or give your opinion without being afraid of getting death threats or hate DMs. There's creepy parasocial people, there's VTuber assets and models costing a lot of money. There being only 2 types of VTubers really that are normalized or accepted, which is either chaotic and loud or quiet and chill. As well as the amount of time, energy, and work put into becoming successful. And she kind of goes into all of this in parentheses right here, as well as the mental strain that VTubing and this platform, which is Twitter in general, causes. And then they have she has a very nice little TLDR about VTubing being hard, but make sure that you know that you want to do it before investing and all of that sort of stuff, which I do absolutely agree with. So now we're down onto the breakdown part. The breakdown part of this thread is more or less to kind of make it a bit less scary to look at. For example, this entire first thing is all about drama. This is all drama. And to that, I kind of want to say there is definitely drama in the VTuber community. It's kind of like spinning a wheel to see what the VTuber community is going to be mad about that week or that month. But do not let this dissuade you. A lot of the times, the second you see something being talked about and it's not a serious issue, it's just kind of stupid and silly, like, oh my gosh, I think so-and-so stole the concept of my VTuber, just mute it for like the week, and by then it will probably go away. So that's kind of what I have to say to a lot of the drama stuff. The one thing I do have to say is that the whole being back in high school all over again with worse and more serious issues, I think the reason why a lot of this sentiment, or where a lot of the sentiment comes from, is the fact that whenever somebody is outed as a terrible person, we're talking like abusers or extremely manipulative or two-faced, people seem to make it circle back to them, if that makes sense. So basically, when somebody is outed as an abuser or when they are outed as just a general terrible person, a lot of people go, oh my gosh, no, I can't believe so-and-so would do that. You know, instead of listening to everybody and kind of supporting the victims of this said horrible person, everybody goes to make it about themselves. And that's kind of where I see the high school sentiment, but a lot of people also just chalk up people being exposed as bad people to drama, which is kind of also where I get this high school sentiment from. And it's that people tend to really just brush off stuff if they like the person in this community, which is very similar to how high school cliques work and everything else. So I can agree that it is sometimes like high school, but that really boils down to who you are associating with. The people that I associate with, it's not like high school. You really just gotta find your people to hang out with, because there are going to be immature people, and at that point you just avoid them. There are people who pop up probably every other month and people go, yep, they were involved in this last month and they did the same thing. And, you know, it's just kind of being wary of who to avoid when you can. There's also the whole being two-faced thing that's mentioned here, people using other people to benefit them. And I do agree that some people do that. However, that's kind of just a general content creator thing. People all the time are going to try and get into collabs and everything else with people who have big numbers because they think that, you know, that attention is going to drive them to wherever they need to be. And at the end of the day, they're going to learn the hard way that that's not how that works. So that's kind of one thing that you need to be less wary of, I guess. You know, if they're asking for free stuff or asking you to buy them stuff, that's a whole nother thing. Please don't do that for people you don't know. And yeah, then there's the gatekeeping of everything. I really don't think VTubing is very gatekeepy that much, unless we are specifically talking about how bigotry tends to drive people away from this community. Then not a lot of gatekeeping in the general sense of like, oh, you can only be a VTuber if XYZ. No, that's really not how this community works, and I guess is how I would say it. I can see where people would think that the community gets very, you know, gatekeepy in nature because of the fact that, yeah, a lot of the models tend to look the same, and a lot of people who are seemingly successful have very, very pricey models. And so people think that there's a base amount you have to spend to become a VTuber, and that's just not true. And I will get into that on about the third tweet of this thread, because Lycqnn goes down and breaks, kind of like tries to make a little list of assets needed to become a VTuber. And honestly, the list can be chopped down a lot. So yeah. Getting canceled for the smallest things. This I don't necessarily agree with. I think that, like I said with the whole high school bit, certain things are minimized and people don't take them as seriously. However, I haven't really seen people get canceled for small things. I've seen people get canceled for things that may look small at first glance, and then you kind of go around and you look further and then you realize kind of that it's not just a small thing and that it's all this other stuff. So yeah, I also really don't like the word canceled because yeah, it's more or less holding people accountable. For example, the most recent thing I can think of is the Pal World game, because obviously a lot of people were upset that the CEO supports AI and NFTs. Namely, he supports generative AI, which is something that artists fight hard against. And without artists, the VTuber community would not exist. My model would not exist, my 2D or 3D one, like nothing would exist without artists. So obviously, VTubers were a little mad that other VTubers were playing it, which is pretty much like understandable, especially from an artist's perspective. So yeah, not being able to speak freely or give your opinion without being afraid of death threats or hate DMs. To this, I say, if you make a tweet and it is getting bigger than you initially expect, for me, that's like getting more than 20 likes on something. The second it hits 20 likes, my DMs are locked to only people I follow, and I mute the thread. Because at the end of the day, that's how you're gonna kind of monitor your space, and that's gonna be how you curate your space and making sure that you are doing okay mentally. And that kind of ties into the mental strain part of this thread, because when you make big tweets, you don't know if a tweet is going to become big 9 times out of 10. You just don't. So with that, you kind of need to, you know, you need to know where you are in the VTubing community, if that makes sense. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is seemingly forbidden to talk about a lot of the time. And I don't know why my hands are getting tracking again. But yeah, so it's one of those things where it's definitely kind of just a being on social media thing. You post anything on Twitter and you are bound to get death threats or hate DMs from somewhere. And to that, I say you just kind of got to moderate your space. And yeah, that's really all you can do about that in general. VTuber or not, content creator or not, that's just how it is. Creepy parasocial perverts kind of goes back into moderating your space. The second, you know, put down your hard boundaries when you can. And if people decide to break those, link them the tweet that has all your boundaries in it. If they decide to ignore that, block them. It's really that simple. A lot of VTubers are very, very scared of losing followers, even if those followers aren't necessarily good for them. And that's a big thing in the VTubing community, is just the obsession about numbers. And sometimes people want to keep those creepy parasocial people around, because if they don't, then they could lose numbers. And to that I say, don't get in a tizzy about numbers. They don't matter. They really don't. VTubing and streaming in general is about having fun. This is VTuber assets drastically increasing in prices, as well as models costing almost half of, your yearly pay. To this, I say, you're just not looking in the right places. There are plenty of model artists and people who rig models out there who will do that for almost under $300. I think my VTuber prices for model and rigging are like barely $200. And that is extremely cheap for a VTuber model. Additionally, there are a lot of free to use assets and short one-time payment assets that are customizable that you can use. It is more the fact that a lot of people, and one of my mutuals actually brought this up, you are paying for a name for a lot of people. You're not paying for your VTuber model. You're paying to say, oh, well, so-and-so made my VTuber model, and they made Iron Mouse's VTuber model, or Sayu's VTuber model, or whoever's VTuber model. And that's kind of where this misconception of VTuber models need to cost thousands of dollars comes from. There are plenty of smaller artists who make VTuber models, who rig VTuber models that don't cost you a lot of money. It's just a matter of looking. And obviously, Lycqnn goes on further in this thread to mention that you have to vet these people. And I absolutely agree with that, because there are so many people I have seen who get scammed because they just didn't pay attention and they didn't see all the red flags and everything else. So you just make sure to vet anybody that you're commissioning, regardless of whether it's for VTubers or not. Make sure to vet people that you're commissioning, get references, all of that. Then there's the amount of time, energy, work needed to become successful, in addition to the mental strain that VTubing and being on Twitter, or really any social media platform, causes in general. And to that, I say, yeah, I agree with that part, but that's kind of not a VTuber thing. It's one of those things where this is a thread that is supposed to be about why being a VTuber sucks right now. And a lot of this isn't just VTuber stuff. This is all stuff that happens in the content creator sphere in general, and in social media in general. That's just how it is when you enter this kind of line of hobbying / work. This does not just specifically apply to VTubers. So yeah, the only thing that really applies to VTubers are the prices. And I skipped over this by accident. There's only two types of VTubers that are normalized or accepted, which is either chaotic and loud or quiet and chill. I don't really know what would come in between these two. So there's that. However, I will say that there is a certain way that a lot of people think VTuber models need to look, and specifically ladies or feminine presenting people need to act. And a lot of that, in my personal experience from what I've seen, is that people are set between either having ginormous titties and being the dommy mommy, constant sexual jokes, or being the borderline a fucking child and being the whole innocent shtick and naive and all that. So there is that. There's also, I honestly probably would have put the fact that the VTuber community is very divided between say-so and unsay-so, which is kind of either lewd or unlewd. And that's a pretty big thing that I would have actually mentioned here instead of this, because again, I don't really know what would fall in between these. For chaotic and loud or quiet and chill, I don't really know what the middle ground between that is, because to me, chill is the middle ground between loud and quiet. It's just kind of relaxed. You're kind of laid back, that sort of thing. And yeah. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to the next part of this thread because it kind of goes in. This is after a lot of feedback from this thread already started coming in. So with that being said, we will move on to the next part of the thread. Alrighty, so this is sort of a follow-up tweet to the previous one. And it basically says a quick add-on to the points made previously. And they, Lycqnn thanks everybody for the discussions that were had and that everybody kind of brought valid arguments and experiences to the table in terms of the VTubing community. So let's kind of break this down and go through it. It says, yes, most of the points listed can absolutely apply to all content creators and the internet in general, which is what I said previously. And that's why I said you'll see some stuff that comes and is like, it's mentioned later. It's just that I'm kind of going tweet by tweet, breaking it down. So yeah. Only thing I would say is different between normal content creators and a VTuber is the amount of money they spend. Content creators will spend a lot of money on their rigs, setups, upgrades, miscellaneous decorations, and assets. And not only do VTubers have to do that, but they also spend a lot of money on assets. A model art and rig from a reputable source can cost up to $8,000. And I know there's budget-friendly services, but even then the costs of everything will pile up. And the third thread in this is actually going to be this example list of assets that we will look at. Of course, you can simply ignore all the drama, hate, and complaints, but there are people who will always talk badly behind your back, and there's nothing you can do about it. I agree that you should ignore them, but at one point, it's time to set boundaries and rules to avoid further conflict and damage to not only your mental and physical well-being, but also to your online identity and brand. And then there's lastly, of course, VTubing and content creation in general have significant benefits and experiences, such as making friends, partnerships, and wholesome experiences, as well as learning new skills, knowledge, and growing as a person. What I'm saying here is that there's a lot of negative aspects when content creating, and there will never be a time in the future where everyone is pleased and happy. So you should focus on what makes you happy and focus on your audience who actually supports you. And then, again, just a very nice note from Lycqnn saying that, you know, please take care of yourself. If you have any questions, DM her, that sort of thing. So with this, I would say, yeah, I do agree here. I said this before. Most of these points can be applied to pretty much every content creator. And with that, I think that's why the thread is a little misguiding in the first place. It says that it's a VTuber issue. And it's not. It's just an internet issue. And then there's this money aspect, which I'm not really going to talk a lot about here. Other than the costs of everything will pile up, they really won't if you are getting cheap stuff. That's all that is. I honestly, if you're really just getting a model and assets and maybe like one game to play, it's probably going to be a max of like $100, assuming you're buying like a AAA title that is very popular. Then there is the, of course you can simply ignore the drama. Yes, you can, and you should. And I do agree, setting boundaries is absolutely a thing that every single content creator, VTuber or not, needs to do. Because a lot of people will step over those. So if you can have a very clear-cut boundary and you go, hey, you're breaking my boundaries, that they kind of don't have a defense against it, going, oh, I didn't know, you know, whatever. If they keep doing it, you know that they know and they're just doing that. And at that point, that's when you kick those people out of your community because you don't need them there. There was a VTuber who was absolutely amazing, a native creator, and they ended up getting chased off the platform because people could not respect their boundaries and they were getting painted as the aggressor in every single situation because of who they were. And it was really, really sucky, which the bigotry that runs in the VTuber community is something entirely else to talk about. And I'm not going to be talking about it a bunch in this because that's not really the focus of this specific thread. And yeah. And I do agree that allowing people to push on your rules and step all over you is going to damage your mental and physical well-being. I wouldn't really care too much about this. Your online identity and brand, be yourself, man. And I know that's such cheesy advice, but it's true. Be yourself. do not try, if you want to have a persona, that's cool. There are plenty of people who have a persona and who act entirely different off camera than how they do, in real life or while on camera. But don't worry about your online identity or brand, especially when you're starting out. It's not needed. I have met so many people who have changed their brands and people still supported them and everything else. And then lastly, of course, VTubing and content creation has its benefits. However, there's a lot of downsides. This is true. I can't disagree with this. There is a lot of downsides to it. However, there's also a lot of upsides that people don't mention. And it's kind of one of those situations where it's a lot easier to list the negatives than it is the positives. For example, like, I am not going to be like, I'm not going to have to get up in the morning and do my freaking hair and my makeup and everything else when I go to his stream. I can hop in here in my jammy jams and absolutely like unbrush, untamed hair, and it's not going to matter because I am a virtual avatar on a screen and nobody can see that. Like right now, I am in my Sam's Club pajama shirt. I am wearing some pajama pants. I haven't brushed my hair yet this morning. I've got headphones on. I've got, my desk is a mess. You can't see any of that. You know why? Because I'm a VTuber. So it's one of those things where there's a lot. Yes, there are downsides like creepy people and everything else. That kind of just comes with the territory, unfortunately. But I think it's better to focus on the good that's in this community than the bad that's in this community, and threads like why it sucks to be a VTuber kind of scares people away from becoming VTubers. And that's a really big thing, So that's one of the biggest things about this thread is that it kind of scares people away from becoming VTubers, and that, it's very, and I know it is not done with any malicious intent, and it's probably not even done intentionally. It's just, imagine you want to become a YouTuber and all anybody talked about is how much it sucks to be a YouTuber. Nobody would want to become YouTubers. Instead, there are a lot of people who talk about the positives. Like, yeah, you know what? If you do happen to make it big, you can just create content and have fun with your job. Or, hey, you know what? You're sharing this experience of this game with other people. Maybe the game has multiple endings or multiple different types of playthroughs you can do, and this person hasn't seen the type of playthrough you're doing. It's that sort of thing. If people only ever talked about the negatives of content creation, there wouldn't be a lot of people who do content creation. And it seems, at least in the VTuber sphere, from what I've seen, a lot of people just like to talk about the negatives. And a lot of times those negatives are costing and prices, which we are going to get onto next. So now we are on to the compiled list of assets that Lycqnn had set up to just kind of give a general look into the community and everything else. So we're just going to look at it first, and then again, we will break down everything and kind of narrow this down. And I'm going to be expelling some myths that a lot of this kind of goes from. Number one is a PC with good enough specs to run your VTuber model, games, and stream with plus any extras you may have. Some even have 2 PCs to run both a high-end model and a high-end game at max settings. This part is true. I have seen VTubers do this. Headset, keyboard, mouse, and monitor. All for, again, this is just a cost thing, like kind of a breakdown. There's no specific costs like listed with each of these, but I will go and I will make a little spreadsheet and I will talk about it at the end, and I will show my little spreadsheet once we get to the end of me breaking everything down. iPhone 10 Plus for face tracking or a camera. I use a camera. A phone or camera stand. A good microphone, since audio is important for VTubers, since body language is hard to express through some models. And some VTubers choose to do ASMR, so you need I think these are called 3DO microphones, which are expensive. Motion capture system if your model features hand tracking or if it's a 3D model. Then we're on to the actual VTuber part of this, past your actual setup. and that's model art and rigging, illustrations for marketing purposes, stream overlays, a stream starting, a BRB and ending screen, stream alerts, a stinger, which is kind of, for those of you that don't know what a stinger is, it's basically if I were to switch between two scenes, there's a little animation that will play in between it. A reference sheet, model reveal, debut slides, lore video, cover/original songs, and then there is a little note down here that basically says anything that can be animated, such as stream overlays, you know, these ending screens, illustrations, all of that can double prices, which is true. People do charge more for animation, and other things such as NDA, which basically means that an artist or whoever's making your stuff cannot stream your work or show any work in progresses or anything like that. And there's also deadlines, which typically this is referring to stuff like rush fees and priority fees. In combination, it could be plus 300% of the original base price. Then there's software. Games. So many games nowadays are expensive, such as Cyberpunk, God of War, Elden Ring, HCD, I don't know what that one is, etc. I know there's a ton of free and even stupid cheap games, but if you want to be trendy and play the games famous streamers play, some of them can get pretty expensive. Vtube Studio or any application that runs models and has paid add-ons, and video plus photo editing softwares if you really want to do everything yourself. Please remember that some of these points can be totally optional and not needed at all, but I'm mentioning it because it's very common for VTubers to aim to get these things for a bigger debut. You're a VTuber nonetheless, even if you don't have anything but a cheap setup, free model, and handmade streaming assets. You're still one of us, so please don't get discouraged reading this list. I'm mainly just listing some random things one might get if you want. So I really do appreciate this this little disclaimer here, because yeah, a lot of these things you don't need. And that's kind of why this is one of the big things that kind of got me looking at this thread, because this is a scary list to look at if you are just starting. So I probably would have added like an asterisk or something to stuff that is optional. And so we're going to kind of break down everything. I also got advice from my dad, who actually works with computers and on computers and all of that, for this specific part, because it is, it's really interesting to see people say, oh, you got to have a great PC, you know, or a really good PC. You don't. And for this, more specifically, running any high-end models, if you know that your PC is not great, even if you're streaming off of a laptop, you know, do not get a super high-end model with a bunch of bells and whistles. Get a basic model that can move around and will change your mouth. You don't even need to move around. You can just have a PNG or a GIF or whatever, and that's literally all you need. VTuber just stands for virtual tuber. It's really not like a solid like, oh, you have to move, you know, because you don't. When I'm drawing or when I am streaming from my laptop, I use a PNG because it is easier and it is less intensive on my computer. So if you know that you don't have a great PC, save up to get a better PC. And then, you know, if that's what you're into, some people might not want to, save up to get a better PC and then get that better model. Additionally, I was talking to my dad about this. He says you can kind of delegate cores to do whatever. Also, I am pretty sure a lot of tracking softwares have stuff that allows you to put those softwares on the back burner. Basically saying, I would like to prioritize my game, or I would like to prioritize this. Also, you do not have to run high-end games at max settings. You just don't. I barely play my Baldur's Gate at max settings because it will lag my computer out if I do, most likely. It will make load times horrible. Headset, keyboard, mouse, and monitor. If you have a 5 below near you, you can get a very good keyboard, like stainless steel keyboard, RGB, if you like RGB, for like $10. You can also get a headset there. You don't even really need a headset. You can also get like earbuds that plug in. So there's that. Mouse and monitor. again, you can get these at Five Below. You can also get these at the like technology section in Ross, or you can get these at Best Buy. Monitor is kind of the only expensive thing on here. So yeah, iPhone 10 Plus for face tracking or a camera, just use a webcam. Unless you are getting like some intense tracking, like you got VBridger or ARKit or any of that, you don't need an iPhone. Additionally, these aren't that expensive to get if you're grabbing them off of like eBay or Facebook Market or whatever. People sell their old iPhone 10s for dirt cheap, and they don't have any SIMs in them. They literally, you just need to plug them in and that's it. A phone or a camera stand. I will put a picture of this up above me. My camera either rests on top of my monitor, or if my hand could stop glitching, it sits on a Lego Pokeball. You do not need any professional camera stands. You do not need a professional phone holder. You just need something that works. A lot of starting streaming stuff is so much like held together by duct tape. And there are people who got successful off doing that. So it's really just a matter of knowing that you do not need a lot of expensive stuff, like at all. A good microphone. Audio is important for VTubers since body language is hard to express. Some VTubers choose to do ASMR, so you need the 3DO microphones, which are expensive. I'm not experienced on the ASMR part. I just know that you don't need those, like, I'm assuming the 3DO ones are the ones with the big ears on the side. You don't, there's people who do just ASMR that's like literally like cutting kinetic sand, and honest to God, that's like my favorite type of ASMR. Additionally, you could just get really close to the mic like I do, you know? So there's that. Good microphone is debatable. There are a lot of people that started out with very crappy microphones because you can make a shitty microphone sound really, really good with filters in OBS. Additionally, your good microphone does not have to be expensive. This microphone, and there's a reason I mentioned Ross. I went to Ross to look for some Christmas presents, and they have a technology section there. It's a wall to the side somewhere in the Ross, wherever it is, wherever you're, wherever they put it in your Ross. This is, I believe, Roccat, and if I get the price wrong, I will like put a little thing of it up on the screen. I believe when I look at it, this mic is about $60. I got this for $20 at Ross. I got two of them. I got one for my boyfriend. I got one for me. They were each $20. And one, I actually think one of them was $25. The only reason one of them was $20 was because the box was broken. Still in great condition, works absolutely amazing, has a bunch of different modes. It actually comes with its own stand. It comes with a bunch of its own stuff. So it's a great mic. I got it for $20. You can get a lot of good mics for, you don't need to start out with a freaking Blue Yeti, Get a mic that works. It doesn't have to be great. Just get one that works. I would personally recommend anything with a condenser or a filter on it. That's just me though. That's a personal thing. You obviously don't have to do that. Motion capture system. So there's a reason I turned on hand tracking for this. I am doing this from my webcam. I use VNyan, which is a 3D VTuber tracking software. This is all done with my webcam. It's a little glitchy, as you can see from my hands, that will occasionally appear, and like obviously, my hands are a bit jittery, but other than that, it is amazing if you want to have that option. Also, you can pay for leap motion trackers, which are about $140, and that is like low-end motion tracking, and that's just to track your hand, I believe, just for hand tracking. So there is that. Then we're on to this. You do not need about half of these to become a VTuber. All you really need is a reference sheet, and that's kind of a maybe, because some artists will accept stuff without a reference sheet if you just have like references laid out, like, okay, this is the hair that I want, this is the specific color I want it, here's kind of the idea I'm going for in terms of design, like dress and stuff. you know, that whole thing. Even, it doesn't even have to be like a professionally done. If you just like Photoshop shit together and be like, this is what I want my VTuber to look like, I doubt people will get that up in a tizzy about it. And model art. That's the only two you need for this. Because you can be a PNG. You don't even need a fully rigged VTuber model. I had my first ever VTuber model, which I will put up on the screen, was half a torso. Like, where my shirt ends on this model is where my VTuber model ended. And the only thing it could do was move its mouth and blink. And that was the only thing it could do. That's how you can start out. There are also free VTuber makers, which I will put a few on screen. I will also put their links in the description. And they're fully customizable, which is absolutely amazing. So I would recommend getting into those if you know, that's free right there. Those two are free. If you want a moving model, free. Just get one of those VTuber makers. Illustrations for marketing purposes. I am going to put a few of my thumbnails on the screen. These are all thumbnails that I use when I announce that I am going live. They are these same emote, copy and pasted over random thumbnails that I found on Google Images for the games that I am going to play. They are not great by any means, but they get the job done. Your stuff does not have to be great. In fact, a lot of stuff when you're playing doesn't need custom art. There's a lot of big VTubers who just slap their model, like a screenshot of their model, over some gameplay, and that's it. That's the thumbnail. That's your illustration for your marketing purpose. And then there's stream overlays. You don't need that. I don't use one. A lot of VTubers that I know don't use them, mainly because of the fact that they take up a lot of the screen, and as a VTuber, you're already taking up a lot of the screen. Starting soon, BRB and ending screens, not needed. Stream alerts, not necessarily needed. There's a lot of free ones if you use Slobs, aka Streamlabs. And if you want to just take the GIFs from there and put them on your thing or whatever, just make sure that's okay by the people who made them. There's also free stream alerts that people make. So yeah, Stream Stinger, you don't need that. You definitely don't need that unless you are planning to be very, very professional. And when you're indie, this is not really a concern. Again, reference sheet, kind of really the only thing that you need. Model reveal, you don't need to do that, but if you want to, it takes like 5 seconds to make one if you're doing the whole like goal thing. I made my like goal for my model in probably like 10 minutes. Debut slides, you don't have to debut. Contrary to popular belief, you do not need to debut to be considered a VTuber. You can just start streaming. It's okay. You don't got to spend a lot of money on debut or any of that. Lore video, you don't need lore. Lord knows I don't even have a lore video. I have lore for my VTuber. I don't have a lore video for her because that's a lot of work and I just don't want to do it. So don't be overwhelmed by like, oh, I need lore for my VTuber. You don't. Just kind of remember a lot of the things that you need is just model art and a reference sheet. Out of all of this, you need model art and a reference sheet. Additionally, if you want custom stuff, do not get an NDA for them. Basically, the reason why artists will charge more for this is because art is their livelihood. If they cannot share a work in progress and you are their priority client, they need money to make sure they can still get groceries. Additionally, this is paying for lost engagement. Deadlines. Do not set a hard deadline. You can set a soft deadline. Typically, deadlines, when they say that having a hard deadline means stuff will go up, this typically means a priority or rush order fee. Do not get those unless you absolutely can pay for them, because those are pricey. My NDA, even for simple stuff like emotes, is $50 because that means I have to find something else to go stream other than what I'm already working on. And then there's this. The main thing I want to point out, I don't know what HZD is, but Cyberpunk, God of War, and Elden Ring are all AAA games. They are all going to cost you about $60. Do not get AAA games. It's that simple. There's a lot of free games like this, like Lycqnn says, there's a lot of free and even stupid cheap games. But if you want to be trendy and play the games famous streamers play, some of them can get very expensive. I can tell you from personal experience, the game that I would stream that always had the highest amount of viewers was Genshin Impact, which is a free video game. Additionally, there is Fortnite, which is also a free and very trendy video game. Then there's other stuff. So if you want to focus less on streaming, but you want to focus more on stuff like making videos, Buckshot Roulette, which is a very popular horror game at the moment, is like $1.50 on itch.io. You can also look at all the AAA games. If you want one AAA game to play, Baldur's Gate is $60. And it will give you almost a guaranteed at least 20 hours of playtime if you're like running through the game. Find one AAA game that you want to splurge on and get that game. Or instead of paying the $60 for one game, you can split it up to other games. Minecraft is, I think, like 20 or 30 bucks. And Minecraft opens up a world of possibilities if you have other friends that can play it. Lethal Company is $10 if you want, another multiplayer game to play with friends or by yourself. What are some other games? Stardew Valley is like 20 bucks, and it's a very, very cute game that you can play by yourself. Very chill game for the more like cozy streamers. So there's all of that. All of those games are relatively cheap and are not $60 AAA titles. Look at indie games for that stuff. Like, seriously, look at indie games. Or, like, play Roblox. There's a shit ton of games on Roblox. And I'm not even joking about that. It's genuinely one of those things that a lot of people could benefit from, knowing you do not need to play AAA titles. You can just play popular free game number 524. And that's kind of my main thing with this. That's kind of all I have to say on this part. I will pull up a little sheet that I have made that goes over general costs of VTubing just based off of some prices, and I'll give ranges sometimes for stuff like model art and stuff based off of what people that I personally know charge. Whoa, hey, note from future me, because I totally forgot to even bring this up because I skipped over this part. For VTube Studio, that little character that flies around on your screen, place your character, if you don't want to pay for the add-on, place your character all the way to the right of the screen, and then you can go into OBS, it's Alt and then left click, and you can crop it out. So you don't have to deal with that little flying chick. And also for video and photo editing, DaVinci Resolve and HitFilm Express are both free. Or no, I think HitFilm Express is free. I think DaVinci Resolve costs money. And then photo editing, GIMP and Krita are both free art softwares, which you can do photo editing in. So I just thought I would add that before we went onto the Excel sheet, because I totally forgot about those 2 points. So now we have this Excel sheet pulled up as well as this tweet pulled up. So as you can see, my Excel sheet is obviously a lot shorter than this tweet is. That is because I really only included stuff that you would need to have. And even then, some of this stuff is still optional. I did cut out some of the stuff that you wouldn't need. So this little total that's 328 instead of the 693, that's cutting out overlays, illustrations, emotes, like it's cutting out so much stuff. Basically, all of this that I'm displaying here is the minimum and maximum prices. So this is a price range. If you're, and this is assuming you are getting a new computer and monitor, like you can't take it because, you know, you only use your phone for everything or whatever. That's all of that. You can just see, and this one that I have up, this table, is all if you want custom stuff. Like you want your own VTuber design, you want all that. That's all for custom stuff. All of these costs are significantly cut down if you just start out with free to use assets, such as free to use customizable models. That is how it goes down from $693 to $328. And furthermore, if you cut out, like you look at this, you cut out, you know, you get your free to use model, that Life 2D model, you use that means you don't need a reference sheet, so reference sheet gets cut out of that equation. You don't need an overlay, you don't need an illustration, and then you already have camera, computer, monitor, and a mouse. That cuts all of that down to $50. Yeah, $50. That's what it gets cut down to start VTubing. If you really need to get your, like, you know, you want a new keyboard, you need new headphones, all that, it's cut down to $50. And really, it's assuming you already have something that can get a mic, and you already have, you know, earbuds or headphones or something, and I'm assuming you already have a keyboard, then it's cut down to $10. And all you need is emotes. And that's if you want that. Other than that, the price to start VTubing is quite literally free. This graph that I pulled up is only to show you what the minimum might be if you want, like, all brand new stuff. Like, say you're moving into a new house, you couldn't take your old computer with you. Like, these are the costs that you probably are looking at. Obviously, this is not including sales tax. A lot of these prices are pulled off of Amazon and Best Buy. But yeah, all of this gets cut down to this, and it is way cheaper. Additionally, if you're using a 3D VTuber, VSeeFace and VNyan are both free. I don't know about Warudo. I've heard of it. I just have not actually personally used it or looked into it. VTube Studio, you can crop out that little flying helicopter girl. Everything is free to use. Of course, it's going to cost more money if you want stuff like VBridger or RKit or any of that. But at the end of the day, that is you choosing to add on extra costs. Other than that, the price to get into VTubing is literally $0. And I just wanted to bring that up. Overall, again, amazing thread by Lycqnn, and I really appreciate her kind of bringing forward the reality of how VTubing can look. But at the end of the day, a lot of this is going to be overwhelming to look at for a lot of people. And I want to kind of show that VTubing can literally be free. Actually, I will pull up my thing on my other screen right now, so you can see it. Obviously, you can't see my little stuff right now. So let me move my little graph over. Will it fit right here? Yeah. This is literally what it's going to show you. This is all it's going to show you when you cut out stuff. And again, see, if I take this emotes and I put that shit to $0, it is $0 to start VTubing. And sure, you might need some knowledge on how to set stuff up, but that's free. There's so many YouTube videos out there. And I really, really want people to realize that you can start VTubing for free. And that you don't need to worry about getting a bajillion different, getting like different assets and everything else. Get free assets. Get free overlays. Do that, and you can start VTubing with no cost at all. And the reason I say you don't even need a camera is because there are ways that you can track your character's gaze and make them move and everything else with just your mouse. So I really, really want you guys to realize that don't be overwhelmed by big lists that say, you know, oh, you need to spend so much money, you need to do this. You don't. Because you can start VTubing for free. Again, there's a reason I included getting custom stuff and getting, you know, cameras, computers, monitors, all that, because some people might be starting from scratch and actually need that stuff. and like those are the prices you might be looking at. But other than that, those aren't going to be the prices you're looking at. And that's a-okay. It's okay to start free. It's okay to use free stuff. Who cares if you're using the same model as some other indie VTuber? Save up and work on getting a custom model if you want, or get the free customizable ones. I will put them in the link down below and I will place them on screen. They are amazing and I would highly recommend it. There's also ones that are pay to use that are only like $30 if you really, really, really want that, and they're fully rigged. So with that being said, thank you to Lycqnn for giving this whole thread. And honestly, as much as I did kind of break it down and critiqued it, it still does give a peer into the reality of the VTuber world, even if it does kind of have points that just kind of cover the internet and content creation in general. And yeah, so with that being said, I hope you all have a great day, night, evening, wherever you are, and I will see you all the next time. Bye-bye! Hey, I just wanted to say thank you so much if you stuck around after this video. This is my first time actually making a longer form of content than just uploading my streams. So, if you like it, let me know. I'm gonna try and get my hand tracking fixed and see what I can do about that so it doesn't like bug out during videos. But I just wanted to say thank you all so much for watching and taking the time to sort of look over the video. And yeah, I understand I really need to work on my not saying for starters and finding other ways to introduce new sections. But other than that, I really, really am appreciative of it. So thank you.